Bismillah, salatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah, wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa man wala. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless this gathering, to shower upon us with His mercy, to reward you all, my dear brothers and sisters, mashallah, for showing up, always being punctual, with all the difficulties in the parking, still showing up. May Allah bless you all. Brothers, how are you? Why do we have youngsters leaning? That's what I'm trying to figure out. MashaAllah. I'm serious, come up. I'm serious. Come up. All of you. How you guys gonna go to Gaza one day, man? You too, Habibi, right there. Ad, you're sitting in my spot too. Come on. Hey, wallahi, jazakum Allah khair. Brothers, everyone's doing good? How's everyone doing? Alhamdulillah. Sisters, how are you? MashaAllah. Look, when you come early, you take the prayer rug, you have it on your back, it's equivalent. But when you come late, you just find the wall, you know? Alhamdulillah. It's good to see everyone. Always a blessing. May Allah accept from us all. We continue, inshallah. This is our 25th session. And subhanallah, Yusuf alayhi salatu wasalam, I believe, was 4 to 5 sessions. And with Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, I still find myself rushing and trying to complete the story. There are so many lessons. And now I understand why Musa alayhi salatu wasalam is the most mentioned prophet in the Quran. I always knew that he was, but when trying to prepare Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, his life, his da'wah, now I'm coming to realize how many lessons we may derive from his life, alayhi salatu wasalam. And so many challenges, so many obstacles. And he was able to overcome them, alayhi salatu wasalam. So we mentioned that Musa was calling people to Allah, the challenges that he faced in the beginning with the magicians, and them becoming Muslims and embracing the message of Islam, and then Fir'aun sending out his threats and threatening these people that were prepared to sacrifice their lives and everything that was dear to them for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If we could recite a few ayat that describes those moments, what were they experiencing? What were they going through? And what was the response of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam to Fir'aun through Allah? Because now Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was taught to allow things to escalate. Fir'aun is still not believing. Fir'aun was exposed to a few miracles, and those miracles did not suffice. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Al-A'raf. Surah Al-A'raf, if people want to follow along, Surah Al-A'raf 127. 127. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وقال الملأ من قوم فرعون أتذر موسى وقومه ليفسدوا في الأرض ويذرك وآلهتك قال سنقتل أبناءهم ونستحيي نساءهم وإنا فوقهم قاهرون. So when the leaders felt that they were threatened, they immediately reach out to Fir'aun and they say on to Fir'aun, are you okay with letting Musa to go about his day-to-day affairs? Like, are you okay with Musa doing what he's doing? And it's always the leaders, because the leaders have something to lose. And this is why we need to be mindful that you will have people in your communities, you will have people around the world, the Muslim leadership around the world, these presidents, these governments, they have their own personal agendas. And we ask ourselves, are we among those whom clap and praise, or among those whom hold others accountable? And our response determines Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's response to you and I. And this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says that it was only a few that led them astray. But the rest were silent. If the rest are silent, then everyone is held accountable. So the leaders immediately reach out to Fir'aun. What will you do with Musa and these people? They're causing corruption. Who was causing corruption? Was Fir'aun and his people. But now they're saying it's Musa and his people, because they're losing a lot now. They are no longer the leaders. Immediately Fir'aun says, نُقَتِّلُ أَبْنَاءَهُمْ, we will kill their children, we will enslave their women. And as all of this is happening, who is paying close attention? The children of Banu Israel. You know what moved me with these ayat? After this, Allah does not even speak about the magicians. Because the magicians were so firm upon their deen that Musa struggled with the children of Israel. And it shows you when you have a community that is not rooted in solid grounding, the foundation is shaken. You see, the magicians, Musa was done with them. They were so good that Musa did not even need to look back. It's like that when you work with someone, how good is it to work with someone where you know you don't have to look back? That's a good feeling. But imagine you always have to look back and do that person's job. That person becomes useless to some extent. Like, I have to do your job and my job, and then I have to work on the mistakes where you went wrong. So it's like double the work now. With the magicians, Musa did not need to look back anymore. And Allah does not even mention them because their iman, even though it was basic, it was solid. They did not know much. But Banu Israel, even though they believed for 20, for 30 years, their iman was on shaking ground. And Musa will always need to reaffirm, remind them, because the bases are not there. And you and I will struggle with that if we don't have the foundation. And what we try to do in these halaqat is build a foundation. If the foundation is strong, everything will stay. If the foundation is weak, it doesn't matter how beautiful the structure is, it will eventually fall. Musa then has to remind Banu Israel right away, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions. قال موسى لقومه استعينوا بالله واصبروا إن الأرض لله. Musa immediately looks on to his people and he says, seek refuge in Allah and be patient. Like, we have to stay strong, oh my people. We can't give up. We can't compromise. Imagine, these are people who believe in Musa. As Musa ﷺ was trying to plant the seed of strength, relying on Allah, trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you know what's their response? قالوا أوذينا من قبل أن تأتينا ومن بعد ما جئتنا. Oh Musa, we suffered before you and we're still suffering after you. Basically, you're doing nothing for us. These are self-interested, people that are just that have self-interest. Nothing beyond that. They're interested in themselves. Always want self-gain. Even though they know what Musa is doing to save them from Fir'aun, until now they are not satisfied. Allah is warning you and I from following the steps of Banu Israel. Nothing made them satisfied. Nothing. And I'm telling you right now, when it comes to Palestine, nothing is going to make them satisfied. People talk about 65, 48, until they take over everything. And this is who they are from the beginning. There's no such thing as satisfaction. The sense of greed is in them. It's there. It is deeply rooted. So they're telling Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, we were bothered before you, and now you're not doing any good. And we're bothered after you. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then beautifully shifts the story because Musa alayhi salatu wasalam does not give up on Fir'aun. As Fir'aun is spreading these messages and threatening Banu Israel, and people are threatened by Fir'aun, they're afraid. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam immediately heads to Fir'aun and he begins to further communicate with Fir'aun by spreading the message of Islam. What happens? Musa alayhi salatu wasalam then informs Fir'aun that miracles will be performed. What is the first miracle? Famine. And he informs Fir'aun that you will experience years of famine. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَلَقَدْ أَخَذْنَا آلَ فِرْعَوْنَ بِالسِّنِينَ وَنَقْصٍ مِّنَ الثَّمَرَاتِ لَعَلَّهُمْ يَذَّكَّرُونَ. Ayah 130. So still, Surah Al-A'raf. That they were taken by famine. And subhanAllah, imagine Banu Israel, they listened to Musa saying, from tomorrow, Egypt will no longer receive rain. And Egypt will go through a famine. And Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, to prove his point, he immediately goes to Fir'aun and he says, from now, you will experience a famine. And this is a test from Allah, and this is also a sign from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In these challenges, Banu Israel were able to experience 9 miracles. And Fir'aun was exposed to 9 miracles. This was the first one. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, the first one was experiencing a famine. Number 2, they asked Musa alayhi salatu wasalam to call upon Allah and to save them from that famine. Musa makes dua. And upon receiving rain, and this is after some time, now Fir'aun needs Musa in town. Because who can solve Musa's problem? Fir'aun's problem? Musa. It's crazy how Fir'aun knew this all along. Wallahi, arrogance is the worst. It's literally the worst illness a mu'min may experience, a believer may experience. Because you know the truth, and upon knowing the truth, you become so blind to the truth where you begin to believe the falsehood and fight for the falsehood. And then criticize those whom embrace the truth. It is so destructive in any way. In every way, kibr is so destructive. And this is why even an atom's weight of kibr is good enough to destroy a person. It is more than enough. And the Prophet ﷺ says, if you have an atom's weight of arrogance, you will not enter Jannah. Look at Fir'aun. Fir'aun now kept Musa close, knowing that the only one that can solve his problem and the problem of the people of Misr, people of Egypt, is Musa. Ya Musa, ask Allah to give us rain. Musa makes dua, rain descends, and upon receiving that rain, Fir'aun immediately rejects. Allah turns that rain into a flood. فَأَرْسَلْنَا عَلَيْهِمُ الطُّوفَانِ. And now so much rain was just pouring on Egypt. And Fir'aun stays quiet. Fir'aun, okay, this was not the same rain that we just had some time ago. That was rain that we enjoyed. Now this is destroying Egypt. It's destroying the kingdom. Ya Musa, please make dua that Allah, that your Lord withholds this rain. Musa makes dua. Fir'aun immediately rejects. After Tufan, after the flooding, and it comes to an end, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sends another challenge. Who knows what jarad is? Huh? Huh? Locusts, grasshoppers. Can you imagine, subhanallah, it was sent down in a way where they couldn't even sleep, they couldn't even eat, they couldn't sit. It was everywhere. Imagine if this whole place, it was a disaster. Like people get scared of a spider sometimes. Huh? I know some people are imagining that. They're already like itching. Subhanallah. And this was a punishment from Allah. Something so simple. Allah doesn't need to send Jibreel down. Al-Jarad. It was everywhere and their lives were miserable. They couldn't sleep, they couldn't function. They came to Musa, they said, Ya Musa, please ask Allah to remove this. Musa asks Allah, and they continue to reject the message of Musa. Arrogance. So when you're dealing with an arrogant person, you just ask Allah to guide them. You know, this idea of trying to convince an arrogant person, may Allah make it easier for you. Like you're going to struggle because it's not about convincing. Like trying to convince them your strategy, your idea, you just can't because this person thinks by default that they're better. So there's no end to it. But you just make dua for them. Make dua that inshallah they understand. And after they ask Musa to ask Allah to remove all of this away from them so they can continue to function and continue with their lives, Musa makes dua. It all goes away. They all die. and they continue to reject, Allah then sends down lice. They are punished with lice, qummal. And now it's everywhere in Egypt. They can't sleep, they're itching, their skin is burning, it's in their beds, it's in their living rooms. They can't go anywhere, they can't escape it. They come to Musa, Ya Musa, please save us from this. And this took some time, by the way. You're talking about years. Now we're talking about years. We're not talking about like 2 days. They come, Musa, please make dua. Musa makes dua. Musa makes dua, it goes away, they move on with rejection. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then sends frogs. الضفادع. They couldn't function, and all of this is in Quran. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala records this in the Quran. This is what happened. Everywhere they go, they can't sit down. They're eating. I don't want to just mess up your image. They have frogs all over the plate. It's a messed up life. Khalas. They make dua, it goes away. They continue to reject. One day they wake up and all the water they have is just red, turned into blood. Waddam. Okay, Ya Musa, how are we going to drink? How will we cook? How? Musa asks Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and Allah responds to Musa, and they're able to overcome that. SubhanAllah, Musa never gave up on his people. This is why he's so special. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, when he talks about this, he says, فَاسْتَكْبَرُوا وَكَانُوا قَوْمًا مُجْرِمِينَ. That they became more arrogant, even though they knew that Musa was the source of the problem, and then the source of the relief, they were still arrogant. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, of course, Allah records how they would respond to Musa. وَلَمَّا وَقَعَ عَلَيْهِمُ الرِّجْزُ قالوا يا موسى ادع لنا ربك بما عهد عندك لئن كشفت عنا الرجز لنؤمنن لك ولنرسلن معك بني إسرائيل فلما كشفنا عنهم الرجز إلى أجل هم بالغوه إذا هم ينكثون. Subhanallah, that they would tell Musa, Ya Musa, wallahi, if you save us from this, we will become sincere believers. We make dua, Ya Allah, if you just save me from this calamity, wallah, I'm going to be praying all salah. All the salawat. In your name, I'm going to be a better person. Ya Allah, if you give me just this job, this business opportunity, wallah, I'm going to be given charity. In your name. And once you and I receive that ni'mah, we go just the opposite way. We go wrong. And these people would promise Musa والسلام, and then go wrong. Promise, then go wrong. You would think for a moment that, okay, these individuals will change. After seeing all these miracles, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells you what was Fir'aun's response. Fir'aun now kept Musa in Egypt, knowing that Musa was the only solution to his problem. And after going through all of this, Fir'aun makes the claim that you find in the Quran. Because he began to see that people's faith shook. And now his power was at risk. This was the moment where Fir'aun said, مَا عَلِمْتُ لَكُم مِّنْ إِلَهٍ غَيْرِي. I do not know of anyone that is worthy of worship except me. Isn't that crazy that after this was the stage where Fir'aun made that claim? Fir'aun made this claim in the end of Musa's interaction with Fir'aun. This was towards the end. And this is why he was deserving of Allah's wrath, because he came straight in the end. So number one, he makes that claim, and he goes above and beyond, and he challenges Allah. You have people even now, governments that are challenging Allah. So oppressive, aggression, killing, massacres taking place, believing to themselves that Allah won't hold them accountable. They are greater than every superpower. Allah will destroy them, wallahi. It just takes time. Fir'aun immediately calls upon the leaders. And he gathers everyone and he says, Ya ayyuhal mala, ma alimtu lakum. This is another, the same one. That one, This is the second claim is in the ayah. He says, أيها الملأ ما علمت لكم من إله غيري فأوقد لي يا هامان على الطين فاجعل لي صرحا لعلي أطلع إلى إله موسى وإني لأظنه من الكاذبين. He said, Ya Haman, I want you to build a bridge, stairs, whatever you may consider it, a pathway towards the heavens, so I can look onto Musa's Lord. Like, who's this God that Musa's claiming? And they began to structure a structure where Fir'aun could look up. Like, how much kibr? Allah, I don't know if it was the pyramids. Like, Allah knows, I don't know. But that was his intention. That can you build stairs, this new construction where I now can be exposed higher than the clouds? I want to see what Musa is talking about. And I believe that Musa is a liar. And you will see later on that every claim Fir'aun made, he was lying. Because Allah records those claims in the Quran. But again, he was overcome by arrogance. And Fir'aun now is becoming this aggressor. There was no stage in Musa's da'wah where Fir'aun said, I am the one that is worthy of being worshipped. Now you're dealing with someone that lost his mind. Like, this guy is really crazy. This guy is truly arrogant. He's saying, I'm the ilah. A few lessons before we move on to the next ayat, my dear brothers and sisters. Number one, when you're dealing with these oppressive forces, you need to know that their way of moving forward, they're always there to change the facts. What's right is wrong and what's wrong is right. You'll see them. When you see a government or a group of people that think they have the power to change the facts, know they are following the steps of Fir'aun. And what's crazy, who's doing that now? Banu Israel. It was Fir'aun that was doing it to them. Now it's the ones that whom were oppressed. You become so arrogant thinking that the world will believe you. If you are trying to understand the image of Fir'aun and his people, just know the media and you. Like, you just look at them lying. Like, nothing makes sense. They're just bluntly lying to you. But subhanAllah, this is a sign of kibr. You reach a level of arrogance where you think the world is enslaved by you. And you have the power to switch the facts. And everyone is dumb enough to believe. And subhanAllah, this is why it's our job to speak up. But this is exactly what Fir'aun did. Number two, what made them unique, this group of people, led by Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, especially the magicians, is that they were firm even upon receiving threats. When do you and I find ourselves demonstrating our Islam at the highest point? Is upon receiving a threat, we are still solid. Like, is our iman sustainable enough where if something would happen in the future, and upon being challenged where our iman may be at risk, will we remain firm or compromise on our faith? Is your iman, my iman, strong enough to withhold challenges, to stand against the challenges, to not compromise? People want to see us weak. People will threaten you and I. How do we respond to those threats determines the strength of our iman. Are we strong or are we weak? Number three is, of course, patience is necessary throughout the process. And you notice that Musa alayhi salatu wasalam reminded people to be patient. Number four, as you and I engage in the world, always be mindful that this kingdom belongs to Allah. This world belongs to Allah. Everything belongs to Al-Mulku Lillah. As Musa alayhi salatu wasalam said, as he's reminding the people of Banu Israel, Inna al-mulka lillah. This, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gives it to whom He wills. So when we ask Allah. When we beg Allah. When we bow to Allah. When we prostrate, we're asking Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And the fifth point, my dear brothers and sisters, it shows you and I, when you have a group of people that you constantly counsel, seek their counseling, and they themselves are corrupt. Unfortunately, what happens nowadays, people don't want those whom are truthful to be around them, because the truth hurts. You want someone that's going to sugarcoat things? You want someone that wants to make you feel good? Someone that you want to clap for you and I? No. It was the followers of Fir'aun that allowed him to believe. Who did he ask to build? Haman. Haman believed that, okay, I'm just going to do whatever you tell me to do. Imagine he wants them to construct something that is impossible to build. But he reaches a level of arrogance that he believed he's able to get there, but it was done through his people. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make us choose the best people to be around us. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, if we can move on to the next ayat, Surah Yunus. Surah Yunus. That when Fir'aun became this oppressive, making such claims, now the strategy changed. And all of these strategies are permissible. Okay? You and I, as Muslims, we may take a few steps back, but we don't give up. There are moments where you have to be silent, but that doesn't mean that you're silent for life. We retreat and we come back. We don't give up. So now the strategy of Musa alayhi salatu wasalam completely changes. And this strategy was not a strategy that Musa decided, it was a strategy that Allah gave unto Musa. So this is revelation now. Everything we're saying is in the Quran. If you can open Surah Yunus, Ayah 87. Ayah 87. 7. The chapter of Yunus. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وأوحينا إلى موسى وأخيه أن تبوأ لقومكما بمصر بيوتا. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala informs Musa and informs Harun now to remain at home. Because Fir'aun is out of his mind. This is not the right time to talk to Fir'aun. Because Fir'aun has done something no one in history has done. I am worthy of being worshipped and there's no other God but me. It's time for you to, like, this guy is crazy, and to protect yourselves, now moving forward, a new strategy is to be at home. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَاجْعَلُوا بُيُوتَكُمْ قِبْلَةً وَأَقِيمُوا الصَّلَاةَ وَبَشِّرِ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ. And allow your homes to be a place of worship. If you can understand this part of the ayah, you know, sometimes I was just remembering, I think it was like a month ago. You know, when it was COVID, we thought the world was over. I think we forget those days. All the craziness, everyone's getting sick, people are afraid, the masks, no one wanted to see each other, all the Zoom calls. Was Zoom there before COVID? And we never heard something called Zoom. I never did. Okay, and then everyone now went to the virtual world, and now it comes with its own challenges, and our homes became our qibla that Ramadan. Instead of going to the masjid, people prayed at home. So if you want to imagine what happened to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam and the children of Israel, it's exactly that. Everyone has to social distance. Stay home, stay safe, and worship Allah and strengthen your faith. That's it. وَاجْعَلُوا بِيُوتَكُمْ قِبْلَةً. Allow your home to be a home where your iman is preserved. So now, my dear brothers and sisters, they are there in their homes making dua, strengthening themselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then mentions a dua that was said by Musa alayhi salatu wasalam in this phase, very difficult experience. He says, وَقَالَ مُوسَى رَبَّنَا إِنَّكَ آتَيْتَ فِرْعَوْنَ وَمَلَأَهُ زِينَةً وَأَمْوَالًا فِي الْحَيَاةِ الدُّنْيَا رَبَّنَا لِيُضِلُّوا عَنْ سَبِيلِكَ رَبَّنَا اطْمِسْ عَلَى أَمْوَالِهِمْ وَاشْدُدْ عَلَى قُلُوبِهِمْ فَلَا يُؤْمِنُوا حَتَّى يَرَوْا الْعَذَابَ الْأَلِيمَ. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam now makes dua against Fir'aun, and he says, Ya Rab, you've given Fir'aun the luxury of this world and the beauty of this world, and you've given them everything that they could possibly wish for. And he says, oh Allah, destroy them. He makes dua that Allah destroys Fir'aun and all of his leaders. And Harun alayhi salatu wassalam was there saying, Ameen, Ameen. How do we know he was saying Ameen? Because Allah mentions that. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then responds to them and he says, قَالَ قَدْ أُجِيبَتْ دَعْوَتُكُمَا, that both of your du'as was accepted. Khalas, Fir'aun's legacy is coming to an end. فَاسْتَقِيمَا, remain firm. And do not follow the desires of the misguided ones. Now the dua of Musa alayhi salatu wassalam was accepted. Subhanallah, now the challenges begin with Fir'aun. The end of Fir'aun just started. A few lessons, my dear brothers and sisters, that I find necessary. Number one, it is necessary that you take by all means. As a believer, there are means that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has allowed you and I to utilize. Taking by those means is a clear sign of wisdom. It doesn't mean you're weak. You know when to talk, you know when to stay quiet. You know when to take a step forward, you know when to take a few steps back. All that is permissible if divinely guided, not due to weakness. If you are doing it through divine guidance, that this is what the Prophet did, this is what Allah wanted from Rasulullah, then you and I are truly blessed. But taking by the means is necessary. Number two, when you and I take a step back, it is only to prepare for the next stage. If you and I take a step back just to sleep, then we are failures. We're failing. We have to be very careful. When you and I take a step back, it is just to prepare. What were they told to do in their homes? Get spiritually enriched. Okay, maybe you can't stand doing مثلا activism nowadays. And whatever it is, there has to be a process. Maybe I need to learn the Quran better. Maybe I need to attend more halaqat. Allow me to be a stronger me. And then I will go back. So when they took a few steps back, it is only to prepare themselves for the next stage. Number three, in Islam, in moments of fear, there is no such thing of stopping your ibadah. There's no such thing as stopping. You can calm down. You can take a step by step. SubhanAllah, you all know when we took our class, Essentials of Islam, there's something called Salatul Khawf, the Salah of fear. That even if someone is afraid, there's a way of performing Salah. It doesn't mean that you stop performing Salah. There always has to be a way that you engage with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Fear is not a justification of a clear disconnect. There always has to be a connection. How and when determines. It's determined based on access, ease, understanding the challenges, but there is no justification that a person stops due to fear. And subhanAllah, they couldn't go in public, but they went into their homes to strengthen their iman. Number four, when it comes to deen, my dear brothers and sisters, deen is protected in homes before the masajid. Unfortunately, what happens to us, especially as parents, is that we think that we preserve our kids through the institutions only. No. It's you and I first, then the institutions. If we can't preserve it at home, we won't be able to preserve it elsewhere. We're fooling ourselves. And Allah is reminding the people of Banu Israel, start at home. Allow it to be a place of worship. And then that will allow you to face the Pharaoh. Number six, prioritizing faith over military action. Military action is not always a solution if led by corrupted people. It's like activism exactly. If you had to choose between spiritual growth and activism, spiritual growth. Because people that are activists are out there, if they're not spiritually enriched and Islamically grounded, they will cause more harm. They'll cause more harm. People need to know that. Right now, I've reached a stage in my life, if someone, an activist, is leading me and they're not praying their salah, I'm not going to listen to them. Especially if they're doing it under Islam. If they're doing it under their experience, I'm okay with it. If somehow it is given an Islamic lens and they want the whole Muslim community to follow, prayer is essential. Because if you're losing your connection with Allah, I can't trust you. Like, people should be comfortable saying that. There's nothing wrong with that. I don't trust you if you've lost your relationship with Allah. Because if you are willing to give up that much, you can easily give us up. If someone can give up Allah, I'm telling you, even in a relationship, if someone can give up Allah, they will easily give you up. This is why we ask people, do you pray? It's about how important is Allah in your life. If Allah, the one that gave everything, is neglected and disobeyed and rejected, what makes you think because you cook a meal or you go to work, you'll be appreciated? Just fooling ourselves. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, of course, Iman always comes first. Number 7, always remaining hopeful throughout the process, even if it's difficult and it may look very ugly. Number 8, the permissibility of making dua against an oppressor, because Musa made dua against Fir'aun. You know, dua in Islam, when the Anbiya would make dua against people, it was always a result of a lot of patience. Nowadays, we make dua against someone because we disagree with them one time. It doesn't work like that. Patience comes before the dua. So it's a whole experience. I tried, and of course, it didn't work out. And then just saying Ameen when someone is making dua. May Allah forgive us all. Say Ameen. Inshallah, Allah gives you and I the same response, that He answered the dua. Ameen, Allahumma Ameen. So after they stayed at home, my dear brothers and sisters, for some time, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reveals a clear command to Musa. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَأَسْرِ بِعِبَادِي لَيْلًا إِنَّكُمْ مُتَّبَعُونَ. Allah commands Musa to migrate. He tried, it didn't work out. It's time for you to leave. You leaving may also be your business, may also be a marriage at times, may also be a relationship at times. Leaving in Islam is allowed once someone takes by all the means. But Allah now tells Musa, just leave and take my servants with you. فَأَسْرِ بِعِبَادِي لَيْلًا إِنَّكُمْ مُتَّبَعُونَ. And now Musa alayhi salatu wasalam instructs Banu Israel, you have to prepare yourselves, let's leave. We will no longer stay in Misr. And as they prepare themselves, because they worked for so many years receiving no compensation, they took everything that belonged to their masters. How? Allahu Alam. So there was some jewelry. So whatever they were able to take with them, they took. Whatever they were able to take, they took. And they began to gradually migrate. Banu Israel at that moment were over 600,000. Some ulama say that they told Fir'aun that we will religiously celebrate something, so they went out and they began to escape. Allahu A'lam how it started. But they fled Egypt and they were able to escape. They were able to escape. And subhanAllah, they took everything with them and they left. And people waited for them to come back to realize that these guys really left Egypt. Khalas, they're no longer there. And now people began to mock Fir'aun. That, Ya Fir'aun, where's your leadership? 600,000 people were able to escape. Who will work for you now? And the masters and all the leaders now felt that they could no longer function, could no longer move forward. Ya Fir'aun, what's the solution? And this is when Fir'aun instructs his people to get ready. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentions in Surah Ash-Shu'ara. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Ayah 53, it's on the screen, وَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَى مُوسَىٰ أَنْ أَسْرِ بِعِبَادِي إِنَّكُمْ مُتَّبَعُونَ فَأَرْسَلَ فِرْعَوْنُ فِي الْمَدَائِنِ حَاشِرِينَ. Fir'aun immediately began to recruit. Fir'aun at that moment was able to recruit 1 million soldiers. As Ibn Kathir mentions, Allah alam how accurate it is. 1 million. 1 million. And then he says, these are a bunch of just losers, failures. We'll get them. Okay? And they began to march 1 million people. It took some time. Fir'aun was strategizing. And his plan was to commit a massacre and to kill all Banu Israel. Like, these people will not come back alive. He was willing to kill 600,000 people. And this is why he prepared an army of 1 million. These guys will not survive after today. SubhanAllah, it got to his head. And he leaves his town and he begins to march. And of course, Wallahu A'lam, they were next to the Red Sea. They arrived. So it was some time. You're talking about tens and tens of miles. And it would take time for Fir'aun to catch up. So Fir'aun begins to march. And Musa alayhi salatu wasalam is just traveling with Banu Israel. And they get to the sea. And Banu Israel again. SubhanAllah, it just never comes to an end. Banu Israel, they speak to Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. What are we going to do, Ya Musa? Ya Musa, where's your Allah? How will we be protected? We're in trouble now. It just never comes to an end with Banu Israel. SubhanAllah. Wallah, he was so patient. That's why Musa, can we say alayhi salam? Say alayhi salam, everyone. What surah is it? Surah Al-Shu'ara. Why is it not up there? The operator? Okay. Okay, if you guys want to open Shu'ara 60, the poets, ayah 60. So they were asking Musa alayhi salatu wasalam, Ya Musa, what's the solution? And Musa will say, it's okay, we'll find a solution. And Musa did not move because Allah instructed Musa to stay in place. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then says, so you can just imagine the image. He says, فَأَتْبَعُوهُمْ مُشْرِقِينَ. At nighttime, they were at ease. And in the morning, early morning, they noticed all the dust in the air. When they noticed all the dust in the air, because the army was marching, they immediately came to Musa. That's when they told Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala records, قال فأتبعوهم مشرقين فلما تراءى الجمعان قال أصحاب موسى إنا مدركون. When they saw all the dust, they immediately came to Musa. They said, Ya Musa, we've been caught. We've been here for some time. We told you we can move, we can escape, but you forced us to stay here. إنا لمدركون. But Musa is not doing it for himself. And at that given moment, when Musa can see now the army getting closer and the sea right in front of him, this is when Musa alayhi salatu wasalam says, Kalla inna ma'i rabbi sayhadi. No, Allah is here to guide us through. Allah told me to be here, I'll be here. Does it make sense to you all? No. Will Allah guide us through it? Yes. Inna ma'i rabbi sayhadi. Right when Musa alayhi salatu wasalam said that, Allah said, فَاضْرِبْ فَأَوْحَيْنَا إِلَى مُوسَى أَنِ اضْرِبْ بِعَصَاكَ الْبَحْرَ فَانْفَلَقَ فَكَانَ كُلُّ فِرْقٍ كَالطَّوْدِ الْعَظِيمِ. He immediately instructs Musa to hit the sea, and it immediately opens up, and Banu Israel cannot even imagine what has taken place. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala instructs the people of Musa to walk between the sea, to walk in the middle. SubhanAllah. It's a miracle that was performed. Allah is the one that controls it. Allah controls the same water that Fir'aun was bragging about, that his castle was on water, was the same water that drowned Fir'aun. Allah is in power. The same knife that cuts was the same knife that was not able to cut Ismail alayhi salatu wasalam and to slaughter Ismail. Allah is in control. And Fir'aun, of course, hasn't reached, but Musa alayhi salatu wasalam is just walking with Banu Israel, 600,000 just walking through the sea, walking through the sea. and Fir'aun gets closer. Ibn Kathir mentions, he said, when Fir'aun came, Fir'aun feared to walk through. Fir'aun is like, okay, I know this is a miracle. It will all make sense to you in the end that Fir'aun knew all along. So Fir'aun was like, okay. So Fir'aun was just watching, going back and forth. And then out of nowhere, he tells his people, you see what's happening? All of this is for me. Even the sea split. So much kibr. So much kibr. SubhanAllah, what was one thing that you noticed about Musa alayhi salatu wasalam? Throughout. Huh? There was one common thing that you noticed about Musa alayhi salatu wasalam. Patience. I'm going to come out with the ayah. I'll be very happy if someone gets it. Tawakkul. Okay. Al-khawf, fear. When Musa finished the sea, what was the first thing he did? He took the stick because he ran out, right? And so he fled. And then he's like, oh, I didn't hit the water back. So he ran back to hit the water. What did he think? The whole thing was happening because of the stick, because of that strike. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells Musa, وَاتْرُكِ الْبَحْرَ رَهْوَةً. Just leave it. Like, khalas, and don't think that you just performed this miracle. It's me. So you show that Musa was, this idea of him being afraid was going all along. So as he was running back, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, just let it go. You won't do anything. It's all taken care of. Of course, Fir'aun, with all of his kibr, wal-iyadu billah, all of his arrogance, thinking that everything is through his power, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala beautifully says, وَجَاوَزْنَا بِبَنِي إِسْرَائِيلَ الْبَحْرَ فَأَتْبَعَهُمْ فِرْعَوْنُ وَجُنُودُهُ بَغْيًا وَعَدْوًا. Imagine Fir'aun thinking that all of this is because of him, and he walks through, and immediately Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala allows the water to go back the way it was. Just imagine how high the water was. Just mountains. And Allah instructs the water to go back. And subhanallah, in that challenge, in that incident, Fir'aun and his army and his power all came to an end. It just took one moment. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala speaks about Fir'aun. As Fir'aun realized that it wasn't because of him and all of this was a lie, he immediately declared his belief. He said, آمنت بالذي آمنت به بنو إسرائيل. I believed in that which the children of Israel have believed in. And I am among the Muslims. I'm a Muslim, khalas. And he was announcing it. I believed, everyone. I believed. Allah then said, Al-an, now you believe. It's too late. Al-ana wa qad asayt. Now, after all these years of oppression, of aggression, thinking that you're Allah, thinking that you're worthy of being worshipped. And of course, his Islam was not rejected. And the legacy of Fir'aun all came to an end. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala then makes a promise, فَالْيَوْمَ نُنَجِّيكَ بِبَدَنِكَ. Today, we will save your body, for your body to be a sign for everyone to come after you. If anyone has kibr, just look at Fir'aun's body. You can see it right now. It's still preserved. Fir'aun's body is still preserved. You can just Google it. That is the end of every mutakabbir. When someone goes against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Allah will destroy that person. Wallahi, Allah will destroy them. And Allah kept Fir'aun a sign until today to understand what happens when a person begins to challenge Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Before we mention the lessons, if we can recite a few ayat, and these ayat conclude everything that happened between Musa and Fir'aun. This is in Surah Dukhan, the chapter of the smoke. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, كم تركوا من جنات وعيون. Like, look what they left behind. They left everything. They left, khalas, everything came to an end. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, فَمَا بَكَتْ عَلَيْهِمُ السَّمَاءُ وَالْأَرْضِ. That the skies and the earth, nor the earth even cried for these people. These people died and their legacies died and everything came to an end. No one was sad for their departure. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, then He speaks about Banu Israel. But then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds the people, look at the people of Tubba, look at Ad, look at Thamud, all the stories we've mentioned. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala reminds you and I, وَمَا خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ is ayah 38. وَمَا خَلَقْنَا السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضِ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا لَاعِبِينَ. That all of this was not created as a game. To think that you and I can manipulate the system, play against Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. All of this was made to serve Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And now Musa is able to escape. And from this point moving on, this is where all the challenges with Banu Israel begin. All of this was Fir'aun. Now it's Musa and his people alayhi salatu wassalam. A few lessons before we conclude. Number one, the importance of private da'wah. Private da'wah, which is private engagement. Anything that makes you and I stronger people. It's not always being out there in the public and our voices being heard. It's what we do here in these masajid before we go out there. And what we do at home and what we do on our prayer rugs. Number two, taking by all the means is necessary as a believer. SubhanAllah, even the stick. Musa alayhi salatu wasalam just wanted to do his part. And Allah told him, hit it with the stick. But the next time it wasn't needed. Like Allah just said, just go. But doing your part as a Muslim is needed. Never think that you and I do not need to take by the means. Number three, reliance on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is always key. Always having hope in Allah. Always rely on Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. When things get dark, when matters get ugly, never lose that connection with Allah. Know that Allah will facilitate. And the more belief you have in Allah, the more good you will see in Allah. Assume good. Think good of Allah to receive good. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in a holy hadith, I am what my servant thinks of me. Number six, this is especially necessary for families, for parents. Leadership with sincere faith comes tranquility. Teach yourselves not to act out. Acting out is a clear indicator of weakness. People want us to act out sometimes. Even when you see media, right? They always look for the Muslim that's going to act out. That's what they want. They want you to act out. Get out of your comfort zone. SubhanAllah, Musa alayhi salatu wasalam was not shaken by the challenges. Okay, Musa, we're caught. Allah is going to take care of it. Make sure that you and I are those who rely on Allah and are comfortably. They are so comfortable saying Allah is going to take care of it. But when sometimes you see people, it's just they're put in positions, they cause so much chaos that everything else becomes chaotic. And maybe your reaction causes more chaos. It's going to be good. It's going to be taken care of. Just calm down. It's not the end of the world. Especially when it comes to parents. Sometimes you see them arguing, it's the end of the world. Iman with leadership comes tranquility. Migrating from oppression is always necessary. The importance of getting together. And you notice that with Banu Israel, even though it didn't work with them, but the importance of congregating. Number seven, just remembering that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is the controller. Always being mindful of that, my dear brothers and sisters. And subhanallah, always know what may save you may destroy others. Just to show you and I that everything is in the hands of Allah. It was the water that saved Musa and the same water that destroyed Fir'aun. It saved Musa in the beginning. It saved Musa in the middle. And it destroyed Fir'aun in the end. SubhanAllah, it just shows you how Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is in control. Also, my dear brothers and sisters, we need to be mindful that making sure that whatever we have received from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is not used against us. Just be mindful that every blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given you and I is a blessing that is utilized for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's worship. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala accept from us. May Allah destroy every oppressor. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give the people of Gaza patience. And may Allah give them victory. And may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala demonstrate His mercy over the people of Gaza and anyone that is suffering around the world. Musa and Fir'aun comes to an end, and Banu Israel begins. And we will see. You'll see what Banu Israel are going to do, just to show you that it's hard to work, to convince them. After all of this, they saw the sea split. You'll think that now they're going to worship Allah day in, day out. You'll see how they responded to Musa, inshallah. We'll finish off next week. Jazakumullah anna kulla khair, barakallah feek. Any comments, any questions? Barakallah.